Hi, my name's Michael Halliday. I'm a passionate bream angler and a Pro Lure sponsored angler. I really enjoy bream fishing. There's so many different techniques that you can actually use when you're bream fishing. So you may only be targeting the one species, but again, as I said, there's so many different techniques that you can use when you are targeting bream. When I chase bream, the Pro Lure lures that I use and I must have in my bag, the S36 Cranks, where they're so versatile. I can fish them from a foot of water out to about 4 foot of water, and there's certain areas, arenas, where I will use them out to about 3 meters of water, and Foster's a good example of that last year, where running a deep crank in the 3 meter range wasn't actually turning the bites, whereas the actual shallow lure, running it down to around 4 foot by holding the rod tip right down, actually enticed the bream out of the weed to actually come get the lures. So two of the must-have colours that I have with the S36 Cranks are the brown gill. This is a great natural colour. It actually represents like a blackfish when you actually see it in the water. So if you see a juvenile blackfish, you'll be surprised how similar this actually looks to those as they're moving around. And another popular colour is the matte black. This lure is one that traditionally known as a dirty or a murky sort of water lure, but it actually is really versatile. It actually works really well in clear water where it'll stand out in contrast and can actually trigger a reaction bite as well because it stands out so much in those sort of ranges. The same colours work really well for me in the deep crank as well, fished in very similar sort of areas. Another must-have for me when I'm fishing out in open water and want to take on a surface bite is the SF62 Pencil. The pearl shrimp is just a great versatile colour and works really well irrespective of what the water clarity is like. It does represent a bait fish skipping across the top. Works well walk the dog style, which is one of my favourite techniques, but also skipping it across the surface, looking like a fleeing prawn. Very, very good lure and attracts a lot of different species. Fishing canals is one of my favourite areas to fish. There's just so much diversity in the structure that you're looking at. You've got rocky edges, you've got pontoons, you've got jetties, even some deep drop-offs that fish really well, especially for your bream. What I always go to is the Pro Lure Live Yabbies. The mud green is a big performer for me up here on the Gold Coast. It's just a great colour. I do scent it lightly, but just throw it in around the structure and let it drift down. And if you haven't picked up a bite on the drop, just little subtle twitches, moving it away from the structure, and you'll find that the fish will tail it out and pick it up. What is really good about this creature bait is that it lends itself so well to skip casting. So getting it up into the nooks and crannies around jetties, around pontoons, it does really lend it so well to that technique, which is not that common with a lot of creature baits with the bits and pieces that hang out off them. The other colour I like to use is the UV pumpkin seed. This worked really well for me in Lake Macquarie last year in the ABT, fished around boat hulls. I found that this wouldn't get as far as a foot underneath the boat hole before the bream were racing out and grabbing it, along with other species that proved a little bit painful through that round as well. Another surface technique that I like to use is pink grubbing with the crystal pink paddle grub. I rig this weedless with a G-lock hook or even with a standard J-style jig hook with a spring lock. These are great and really versatile. You can actually run them across the top like a prawn, just running across the surface. It's not a new technique, but it's definitely one I think everyone should have in their bag. The reason why it is so good is if you've got fish not committing, you can see them moving along with another surface lure. What you can do with this is actually just let it sink back down, and the fish will actually pick it up as it drops, especially as soon as it gets close to the bottom, they'll grab it, because prawns will traditionally drop down and also bury themselves in the sand. So when the fish see that happening, they'll grab that before it gets there, so let's try and stop it from getting away. During the winter months, I like to fish deep, especially for bream, as they do school up. And even in the Gold Coast, there are areas where you'll find the fish schooled densely. And one of the best ways to actually get them to bite is using a plastic, fish nice and slow, but rolled through the schools. The Pro Lure grub tails come in some great colours. There's two colours in the grub tail range that I always reach for when I'm fishing deep, and that's the motor oil, which is already a very popular colour, and with a little bit of scent, slow rolled through schooled fish, it's very uncommon not to actually get hits from the fish. It's a very subtle technique that you need to use to actually load up and get the bites a lot of the time, but a very good way to actually turn a very slow day into a very productive day. Another colour I use is the pearl green. Further south, I actually find this colour works better on those deep schools, although the same colour works really well in the live yabby up here on our structure. So I've just given you some insight on how the Pro Lure range works really well for me, and it's been very good for me performance-wise within the ABT circuit. You can find more about the range on Facebook or Instagram, and also on their webpage.